And I think Australia is a very strong, little strong country. And I don't think we'll accept anything that we don't choose to accept. I don't think we'll be overrun by the whims of Donald Trump.
I read somewhere that you have interviewed 17 prime ministers. I get excited when I interview 2. You've interviewed 17 prime ministers, Australian prime
I
ministers.
think it's more than 17. No, 17.
And of which twice was Kevin Rudd. In those 17 prime ministers, is there any standouts that you rate?
Oh yeah. Paul Keating is a standout.
Why?
Larrikin.
As
What a great brain.
Yeah, got plenty going on up there in the grey matter.
Great brain. Malcolm Fraser I admired greatly and spent a lot of time with Malcolm Fraser. Most of them I've got on very well with. Gough Whitlam, I had a New Year's Eve with Gough Whitlam in Paris, in his palatial Paris home. He and my wife at that time and Margaret and Gough all had New Year's Eve together, which was great. Yes, I've known a lot of prime ministers, and I've been very close to quite a few prime ministers.
If we look at Paul Keating, because he went to my school actually, he was a few years ahead of me, but he was as I recall it, I don't know what it was, the head of the Student Representative Council. Even in those days, he was sort of very, much aware of unionism and sort of, what should be done in relation to making things better at the university, at the school. But Paul was always really smart at school. Like, it was well known that Paul Keating was one of the smart kids at school. In terms of his policy in Australia, he was big between 1987 and 1996. Do you think that Paul was too honest for his own good? And why I say that is because I remember 2 things that he said that were turned against him. The first was, this is the recession we had to have.
Yeah.
And on your show...
He said that on my show.
And he also said on your show something about the Banana Republic.
Yeah, he said that on my show too.
But over time, they were used against him. The media then turned those around, and I think anyway, and I think one of the reasons he lost the election as Prime Minister, when he was Prime Minister, was largely because of his intellectual honesty and no regard for what the fallout might be by being intellectually honest, because he had a huge intellect, he still does, obviously. Whereas today, you never hear prime ministers saying anything that's even slightly dangerous. Not even slightly dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, John Howard certainly wasn't a wuss, was he? He said what he wanted to say and said it pretty well. I admired and still do admire John Howard. And I admired and do admire Paul Keating. Paul Keating had a brain like a steel trap. He was onto everything. He was very highly, highly intelligent. Still is, I presume. I don't see him much these days.
I had lunch with him, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and we had it in a place in Bondi, and he's quite amazing. He pulled out a photocopy of a newspaper, Financial Review, front page, with a note on it written in his writing, and he showed it to me. I don't know how he kept it. It was from 1996 or 1995 or something like that. The paper was back in, it was 20 years before I'd seen him, but he was able to find this because we're going to have lunch. And on it was a reference to his economic policy about deregulation. And sort of the point he was trying to make was, one of the reasons my business was very successful, lending money to people to buy houses, was because of his change in economic policy. And it's true, what he said was true. But my point is, he's so smart and so intellectually organised that he knew how to put his hand on this photocopy of this front page of the Financial Review, quoting him back in 1996. Like, that's scary smart.
Yeah.
And I don't think most people give him the credit for being as smart as or as intellectually voluminous as he was. And I don't think we have anybody in the last 10 years who gets anywhere near him.
Don't underestimate John Howard.
No, I can't remember how far back John goes now, but definitely John Howard is up there, definitely. And Peter Costello in terms of his portfolio too, definitely. But they were more, they were 2000 between 2000 and 2005, I think. Yeah, maybe they're definitely the last 20 years Howard's been around. But past that, I don't know if we've really had anybody who had that sort of
I don't think we have either.
Bandwidth.
I don't think we have either. We've had, I'm trying to think of somebody.
Rudd?
No, thank you.
Morrison?
No.
Albanese?
Morrison, no.
Albanese?
Yeah, interesting character, Albanese. Very, very nice man.
Everyone seems to love him as a bloke. I don't really know him. Everyone tells me that he is a good person, a good bloke. I wonder whether or not he's got a massive machine behind him, though, which is trying to please everybody. Because, I mean, the Labor Party is a pretty tough environment to be in, especially with the unions.
I think he's a pretty safe sort of fella, Albanese. I think that you can count on him. I don't think he vacillates a great deal, whereas a lot of politicians do by necessity because they go with the crowd.
That's very interesting because I wonder whether or not politics has become about populist. What's popular? What is popular? And are we just voting for what's popular today? Because the average voter doesn't really, I don't know, we don't, the average voter, not older people like me, but the average voter, the younger voter, they just go with what's in it for me sort of thing. You're been an observer of people for a long, long time. What do you think about the average voter today and politics generally? I mean,
I think a lot of the average voters today couldn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I think that they're very laissez-faire about voting. It's something that is an accepted way of life. It's something that you've got to do, and you do it. And I don't know that they spend a lot of time thinking about it.
And they've got to do it because it's compulsory.
Sorry?
They've got to do it because it's compulsory.
That's right, yeah.
And they'll get a fine if they don't.
Yeah. If it wasn't compulsory, it'd be very interesting to see the outcome.
That would be interesting. Like the US, be interesting to see who actually went and really wanted to vote because they passionately believe in that person or that party and that part or this party. It would be extremely interesting to see that outcome in Australia. And that's where that's why Trump's so amazing. Like, I don't know if Trump's a genius or the world's best marketer, or I don't know. I can't get my head around the guy. Like,
I think he's a latent genius. I think underneath all that, there's a highly intelligent and very cunning man. I think that he's very cunning in what he does and the way he does it.